So, all right. And now I'm going to invite you into the inner healing experience. I'm going to invite you to take a nice deep breath. Just breathe it all the way down. Breathe in the love and exhale everything that's not. Breathe in the consciousness and exhale everything that is unconscious. And then relax into your chair and be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin the inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner acceptance and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging the higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, now I say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I am willing to accept as real for me in this coming week, visualizing the idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words: I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me, a family member, a friend, a mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways, someone who's not physically present in the room this morning. And I turn to that image in mind and say, I am grateful for the good in your life. I now open my eyes to the world around me and joyfully turn to the person next to me and share my gratitude and confidence and by saying, I am grateful for the good in your life.
Well, where to begin? I'm talking about love today, so where to begin? Because it's a big topic. I didn't know you were going to do that song. I love that song. And what you may not know, and I can't give you dates and times on this, but that song goes just about as far back in religious science centers as does the peace song in its performance. It goes back at least to the late 70s when I first remember hearing it, and it's just gorgeous. And for those of you watching who are not conversant in Gulf Coast culture, it's Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras actually is this coming Tuesday. It's the weekend preceding Mardi Gras, but last weekend was the weekend preceding Mardi Gras. And Mardi Gras really begins, no one's really sure. It's either New Year's Eve it begins, or it begins the day after Easter, and runs pretty much the full year round. It all depends on how engaged you are. And that's why you see the beautiful display back here, created by Denise and Melody and Sarah. And it's why some of us are wearing purple. And you're going to hear a song that's dedicated to the Mardi Gras spirit too. But it ties into this because Mardi Gras, stuff has been, like with any other tradition, stuff has been added on to it regularly as it goes along. And along the way, the color scheme of purple, green, and gold was given a designation of the purple of justice, the green of faith, and the gold of power. And these tie in as well to what we're doing here. If you have been with us lately, you know that this is an extended series on the basics of the science of mind, which began in January and will continue indefinitely, like Mardi Gras. And I thought we'd talk. I've been kind of fielding questions and things that come up, or bringing up questions I've gotten over the years about it. And one of these is, well, what is divine love? You'll hear in a little while us recite together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. And we will say this basically over our money when we come to the collection in the service. And those of you at home can participate in this as well. What is this divine love that blesses and multiplies? Well, divine love, according to Ernest Holmes, encompasses not just a lot, it encompasses all. It encompasses everything. Divine love is the experience that the divine nature is having of itself through its creation. That is divine love. We've made a distinction earlier, last month, between divine nature and human nature. We've said, well, the divine nature is everywhere, but human nature has the capacity to deny it. Well, the same is true of divine love. Divine love is everywhere expressing, and human love may or may not rise to that level. Human love may be very conditional. It may presume a lot. It may request a lot. There may be a lot of kind of transactional energy to it, whereas divine love just pours itself out unceasingly and unstintingly through all of us. Also, it's important to remember that divine love is not a one-way flow. You've probably heard your whole life that God loves you, and that's great, but you can also kind of get an image from that. I'm not saying you necessarily do, but you can, that God is sitting out there in space someplace just loving you, and that's great. And you know, and it's all kind of up to God, and God presumably could stop loving you too. Then, you know, turn it off or withdraw some of this kind of affection that it has for you, and there's really nothing that you need to do about it. This is a teaching that you're sitting in right now of personal responsibility that says there's a great deal you have to do about it. You have to accept it. You have to be willing to receive this love and make use of it in some fashion. Or it just kind of bounces off of you. It just sort of runs to the floor and off to the storm drain, you know. This love asks a lot of us. It asks self-awareness of us. It asks self-fulfillment of us. It asks you to know who you are. It asks you to look at your issues. Look at your stuff. Look at what's between you and accepting that you are the experience the divine nature is having by means of you. That's a tall order. The divine nature is, it's not just your genetics, it's not just society, or even your family and the people that love you, that have expectations of you. The whole universe is counting on you to show up as who you are. The divine nature is having an experience of itself by means of you. And that's not an opportunity you want to waste. It just isn't. So how do we make effective use of it? We recognize, first of all, what you might call the ubiquity of love. Love is everywhere. Love is in inanimate form. It's in animate form. It's more than a sensation. It's more than a feeling. Every time I say that, I think of the Boston song. More than a feeling. But it's more than a feeling. It's more than that. But we know it through our sensations, and we know it through our feelings. Does that make sense? It's more than that, but that's how we kind of receive it in our inner receiving station. That's our antenna go up, and this is how we know it. A feeling comes over us of some kind, but it only comes over us because we've given it permission to do so. We've given it permission to do so. Now, here's an interesting factoid for you, if you like these sort of things. Ernest Holmes, founder of this teaching, wrote a book called The Science Mind. Then he wrote a bunch of other books, and one of those other books is How to Use the Science Mind, which is what we're really working out of this month. But The Science of Mind is what we call our textbook, and it's a big fat book. It's 667 pages, I think, with index, And in that book, a lot of words, and those words were gathered into a concordance by Al Lowe and Martha Ann Stewart back a long time ago in a first-generation word processor. That's how long ago that was. And it's since been updated and all, but nobody's improved on their work. They've just basically changed the type font of the book, of the concordance of the science mind. So it makes it easy to look up words and see where they are, and it makes it easy to look up how often they occur, which I did the other night, wondering how often in the book The Science Mind the word mind occurs. Okay? 75 times. 75 times in 667 pages, which makes it about once every 8.5 pages, I guess, the word mind occurs. Well, that makes sense. It's in the title and all. But the word love shows up 92 times. So is this the science of mind, or is this the science of love? Why did he call it the science of mind? Why all this emphasis on mind? I'll tell you why, I think. There are many reasons. It's a big conversation, but for today's purposes, I'll tell you what I think. I think he called it mind, and I think we focus on mind so much because mind is the part that can be changed by us most effectively and as a priority. And as a priority. It's possible but unusual to change your heart before you change your mind. You see? You have to be willing and open to having your heart changed. You must admit in some way that your heart ought to be changed. For you to put it in a position to be changed, and all of that activity is mental. All of that. When we say to ourselves, I could be mistaken. Boom. All of a sudden we're teachable. Or not even I could be mistaken, but I might not have the whole story. I might not have all the information. There might be stuff that's just beyond my awareness. I'm not wrong about it. I'm just kind of oblivious to it. Boom. All of a sudden we're teachable. And the universe can walk in and say, well, here's some stuff you've never even considered, because you're open to looking at stuff you've never even considered. And if we hadn't done that, the stuff that we hadn't even considered would have shown up in our lives, and we would have looked right through it. I brought this up before, but we wouldn't have even noticed it. Because it was not important to us to do so. We didn't think we needed to look there. So we didn't look there. And there it was, And you come home and your partner's redecorated a part of the house you never look in, and it's like, well, when did you do that? 7 months ago, I didn't know it because it didn't matter, But you moved my breakfast cereal, then You know, you get my point? So it's like when it's something that's significant to us. So we got to make it significant to us. And this is the teaching of all the great ones, Jesus and all the others. It was like, stay awake, stay awake. He asked, remember in the garden, and we'll come to this next month as we move toward Easter, but remember in the garden, what did he ask of the disciples? Stay awake while I pray. And they couldn't, could they? No, they dropped off. Because they didn't understand the importance of this. What does it mean? He's going to be praying. He's not going to notice if we're awake, you know? It wasn't that important to them. They hadn't made a mental and emotional commitment to doing this. But you and I must stay awake. We must stay awake to the potentialities of life that are coming toward us, the stuff that we'd invited, that we forgot we'd invited. That's one thing. The invitation that was sent out, the unconscious invitation. We talk about this in one of our classes. When have you issued unconscious invitation before? And that means when have you, like, prayed for something that you didn't know you were praying for, and then it showed up, and suddenly you realized, you kind of circled back on it, and you realized, oh yeah, I did sort of invite this, you know? Well, it's a surprise, and sometimes it's a shock because you prayed for the thing without intending to, not just not knowing you were doing so, but not intending to do so. Because of every thought's a prayer, you wrap feeling around every thought, you send it into spiritual law, it manifests in some way, but it does this long before you know it's doing it. You follow me? Okay? The science of mind brings us to a place where we become aware of what we're doing in terms of using spiritual law, but before we become aware of that, we're still using spiritual law. From basically the crib up. We're still sending things, and so we make up laws for ourselves, we make up cause and effect relationships for ourselves, and we empower them with feeling and buy into them, and years later, maybe, they start springing forth as forms in our lives, and we're astonished, and sometimes we're, thunderstruck at what appears. So the key is to become aware of what we're doing, aware of who we are, aware of the presence that's moving through us. The presence and the principle. These are the two pillars, I guess you might say, that Holmes, he called them a lot of different things, so the pillars move around, But he said there's the presence, the great I am, that which is, and then there's the principle, which is what it does. The principle is what the presence does. The presence is, right? And then it does something. It becomes something. Well, what it's busy doing is transmuting itself into, yeah, that's a good way to put it, transmuting itself from pure potential into particular form. It's doing this. Yet it's doing this in an interesting and enjoyable way to itself and to us. It's not an assembly line, just stamping out things, making people and making trees and clouds and rocks and cities and all the rest of it, And as they fall off the end of the line, they're gathered in, and set up in place. But it's doing this in a spontaneous kind of way, an original way, and an evolving way. So you and I, for example, are evolved beings. We're more evolved beings than the beings of any prior generation. They had amazing people in them, make no mistake. All of our ancestors were, what did Lisa say, off the hook? Okay, all of they're off the chart, amazing people, tremendous people, and all of that. And yet we are the next iteration of them. We are the latest evolution of them in the human species. And the generations coming behind us, the generations as yet unborn, will be further evolutions of this. And this is what the divine nature of love takes great delight in. Everything is evolving. Our ideas are evolving. Some of our ideas are evolving in a manner that looks like devolving. Things, that is to say, things fall apart so they can fall together. Things that are false are built on shifting sands, and they begin to fall away. Things like the separation that we feel between us as people, right? The stories that we tell about a hierarchy of worth in the culture among people. This is a lie. This has never been true. But it's taken some time to undo it. And it's falling apart now, and we see it falling apart around ourselves. And then some of us look at what all's falling apart, and we say, oh, well, we want to keep this, and we want to keep that, and we want to pull this out. I don't know. This is not a good analogy. It just jumped into my head. But it's kind of like if you have a big garage sale or rummage sale or yard sale or whatever you call it in your part of the world. I'm talking to the camera here, you know. And, right? And you gather up all the stuff that you want, and you put it out in the yard, and this. And then the day comes, and cars start pulling up, and people start pawing through it, you know. And now you're looking at it through new eyes, okay? Because you put 25 cents on that item, and you remember Grandma gave you that, and it was, you know, there's this, all of a sudden everything has a heart tug to it, and you want to start pulling it back, and you can't really do that because it's, I don't know if it's illegal, but it's sort of wrong when people are there and they're offering you money for it. So no, I want to keep that. You know, so we do this sometimes to the old-fashioned ways, the old ways. But life will not have us look backward. It just won't. And things keep moving forward. And I'm not saying we have to unload our houses of stuff. I think you get that it's deeper than that. Do you want oneness? Then you get oneness. You get total oneness. It's with spirit, it seems to be an all or nothing kind of thing. And it starts with when I say to spirit, I want to know myself. You know what happens? I don't get to know some of myself. I don't get to know the parts of myself that I'm already familiar with and I'm comfortable with. I get to know all of myself. I get to know my motives. I get to know my intentions. I get to know their bases. The traumas, the experiences, the events that I have based my choices on, all of this stuff starts to come up for my review. So divine love is not always comfortable. And the theme that's running through CSL this month is divine. I think it's divine discomfort. And we've got to be okay with that. Look at the discomfort that you go through in the course of a day that you're kind of accustomed to, but it's still uncomfortable. It's like getting up in the morning. That's uncomfortable. Don't you want to stay in bed? But you got to go to work. Or you got to come here. You know, you got stuff to do. Or the dog wants out. Right? The dog wants out. Or the cat wants feeding. Or something. Or your children. You know, your children, for crying out loud. And so it starts with that. And you don't really, but you do it. You get up, and you know, and then you got to take a shower, and before the hot water comes on, the cold water does, and right, and everything is kind of, and then you gotta get dressed, but you didn't iron a shirt, and so you got to do that, and it's you know, and everything is kind of an ordeal if you look at it that way. And it makes it, and then the more involved you are in life, those are just simple household things, but the more involved you are in life, let's talk about the job you have. You have a job, right? And you have some responsibilities there. And you probably don't work entirely alone. You work with other people. And so you've got to deal with them. And that's not always as smooth as it could be. And so you've got now that there's some discomfort there. Perhaps you're a leader and you have to talk to people, or you have a leader, you're working for somebody who is telling you what they need you to do, and you don't always agree, or it doesn't always make sense, and on and on. And so we've got to push through these things. And one of the funnier ones is that when you do your job and you do it really well, you tend to get promoted. And when you get promoted, they tend to put you in a place where you're doing tasks that you're not familiar with, because the person that was in that job before was doing them and you were doing something else, right? So now you get handed this, and so all of a sudden it's uncomfortable. And you kind of want to go back to how it was, but you can't, because you really wanted to be promoted because it's part of your career arc, and there's more money and respect and all the rest of it. Or you want to be in a play, and we've used this example countless times, and you can't wait to be out on stage and be in the play and all like that. But to do that, you're going to have to learn some lines. And then the moment's going to come where they're going to push you out there, and you're going to have to recite these lines in front of an audience. And it's terrifying, and it's very uncomfortable. And tonight there's a football game. We were just talking about this. You may have heard of it. One day our local team will be in it. I'm knowing that the world evolves in that direction before too awful long. Anyway, there's a football game tonight, and a bunch of these football players, they're all going to be out there, and they're going to be like, hey, I'm where I've always wanted to be, the Super Bowl. I'm playing in the Super Bowl. And then they're going to think, my God, I'm playing in the Super Bowl, right? In front of billions of people watching me. My every move. It's right? So this is what love does. It pushes you out there. And then an example that all of us can relate to. You fall in love. You fall in love. And we've talked about that expression before. It's, falling, it feels helpless and out of control and all, but it's the expression most often used. You fall in love, and then where are you? Then where are you? Because it's terrifying. It's complete risk. You've handed your heart to another person. You've said, here, hold this for me, right? Take care of this for me. Meanwhile, they've done the same with you. And you're in this place where so much it feels like can go wrong. So much can go sideways, and it would be devastating to you. It'd be so much simpler, so much easier to never have had that experience, just like it would have been so much easier to not get out of bed this morning and just sleep the day away. It's kind of gray and coming on rainy, and why not? But no, something won't let us do that. Just like we could have stayed in whatever state we were in before we incarnated in human form. We could have stayed, whatever that looks like, in the lap of God or with the angels or on some cloud or something like that, and said, no, let other people take care of it. I'm not going to bother with this incarnation, and head down to earth and have a job and responsibilities, and relationships and all that. But no, we signed up and we showed up. We suited up and we showed up here doing this. So divine love encompasses absolutely everything. And divine love so it can be turbulent, okay? It can be kind of upsetting. It can be heart-rending, yeah. Because all of a sudden, as you open yourself to divine love, you care more about people and their conditions that do not directly affect you. You become able to imagine. You've heard the expression to walk a mile in someone else's moccasins. Okay, that's a really good example of what's called a metaphor. You don't actually take their moccasins and walk a mile in them, because if you did, they might not fit and stuff, and they'd be a mile away and barefoot, But so what it means is to put yourself in their place cognitively. Say, if I were you, I bet this is what I'd be feeling right now. You don't know for sure ever that it is what you'd be feeling, because you don't know for sure ever that it is what they're feeling, these other people. And this is an important point that we'll come to again and again, is we never know exactly what's going on with other people. That we can just kind of, because we're metaphysicians, we can sort of surmise certain things about them. No. But what we do know is what we imagine is going on with them, you see. And we can relate their situations to current or prior situations that we ourselves have had. So that if someone is experiencing a loss, let's say, we go back in memory to when we've experienced loss, and we remember what that was like, and we don't plaster that all over their experience, but we do connect. We do connect on that. They may well be feeling what I felt. To do that, what I just described, to have that cognitive reference point to somebody else's experience, means that we have managed or are managing our own experience sufficiently well that we're not entirely preoccupied with it. That we're not so self-absorbed with getting our needs met and how we feel and what life is doing for us, that we're able to look past that into other people's experience of life and imagine what they must be feeling and ask them if they are. And offer sincere help offer sincere and authentic and actually deliver help to these individuals, whether we know them or whether we don't, whether they're neighbors across the street or people the other side of the world, people we might never meet. But suddenly we become compassionate global citizens. Suddenly we become engaged with the whole family of humankind. And we wanted that from the beginning, and we thought divine love was going to do it for us, that divine love was just going to heal and fix everything. And that's really not how it works, or we wouldn't be needed. We'd all be extras in the cast. It works through us. It works through each one of us doing what we can. And can we get round to everybody? No. Not as individuals, but as a collective reality we can. And it reminds me of a little story I read, and you've heard this probably before, maybe from me, probably not. But Loren Isley wrote back in the, 70s and 80s. He was you'd have to look him up. I don't know exactly what. He was a scientist of some kind. I just saw Lisa twitch, and that means Lisa's starting to look him up. She's heading to Google there. But he was like a natural scientist, let's say, biologist, something like that. Loren Isley, LoreneisleY, I think it is. And he told a story, and I don't know if it was original to him, but the starfish thrower. The starfish thrower. There's a person walking down a beach that's littered with stranded starfish. Okay? And this person is picking them up off the beach and throwing them out into the waves. Another person comes along and sees them doing this and says, "Say, friend, with this multitude of starfish dying on this beach, how do you suppose that what you're doing can really make a difference?" And the first person looks down, the thrower looks down at the starfish in their hand, and they say, "Well, it makes a difference to this one. It makes a difference to this one," you see. And so, now who all's heard that story and who in the culture has heard that story out of Isley's book or wherever, and has gone to a beach where there are starfish and has thought, "Say, I can do something about this. These aren't just props. This isn't just, Margaritaville beach scene or something like this. This is really ecology happening here. And this creature of the same creator that made me, this starfish, which doesn't look at all like me, but is fully orbed life, is suffering, and I can do something about that." Or they have seen a similar situation where there's a puppy running across a freeway, and they stop their car and they wait for the traffic and they pray to God that the puppy won't make a wrong decision, and they run and they grab the puppy up and they put it in their car and they take it home and they have a new friend or they give it to somebody, but they've saved that puppy's life. And then you move on to people communications, people to people relationships, where we extend ourselves and we do something for the people who we tend to call the less fortunate, as though there was fortune that was distributed from the divine in some sort of kind of random way. It's not that at all. It's that sometimes people make choices. Sometimes people make choices that hurt them. And what also happens, it's less looked at, is that sometimes we create structures in society that are unfair. They're just wrong. But they benefit somebody. They benefit enough people to keep them propped up, and other people are kind of oblivious to it or don't want to be bothered, don't want to hear about it, because it still delivers the goods, there's still food on my table. Somebody will say, "Well, if I don't have this problem, nobody must have this problem." And that's a heart that's not open yet. That's a mind that's not chosen yet to really experience oneness. Oneness cannot be limited. If you want oneness in your life, if you want to really feel one with all creation, if you want to really feel one with the flow, you got to realize Everybody's fully entitled. Everybody is fully entitled and has been by right of birth, by right of consciousness, by right of being created by the same source that made you and me and all we love. And the payoff, because people want to say, well, that's a noble way of looking at things, but what's the payoff to me? The payoff to you is you widen your circle of friends. You widen your circle of godlings. All of a sudden, life really can look like, for us, one of those TV commercials where all these people go singing and dancing through the streets and stuff, and they're coming out of doorways and they're greeting each other, and it's kind of a Disneyland sort of thing, and we think, oh, that is so phony. These people are paid actors and dancers and whatnot, but life really can be like that. And you know where those people live? Right out there, up and down the streets of our world. That's where they are. So, faith, which we've dealt with and will come to again, justice and power. Power to do what? Power to make your dreams come true. Not power to control other people's choices, but power to make your own dreams come true, to do what it is you set out to do, to know that you can in fact do this. Whoever you are, you can do this, and it doesn't matter who you are. It's not related to education. It's not related to age. It's certainly not related to ethnicity, that there's a certain categorization that you must fit yourself into. Anyone can do anything. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And are you willing to know not only that you can do it, that divine love enables you to do it, but are you willing to know that absolutely everybody else on this planet can do just as much as you can? And be glad of that. And be glad of that for them and celebrate them doing that. Then, if you can do this and keep it up, and there'll be moments when we'll forget and we'll go into our private space and resent and regret a little bit, and then, but we pull ourselves out of that. Then, and only then, really, are we living up to the fullness of what we were created to be? And the payoff is joy. And the payoff is joy. All right, I thank you very much. I wish you a happy Lunar New Year, which is going on right now, a happy Mardi Gras. I wish you a happy Valentine's Day coming up on Wednesday. I wish you certainly a happy Black History Month, and you will hear more about this from us as we go along, and some of the plans that we have through the rest of the month. And I wish you a beautiful day. Thank you.
Before the service began, Reverend Jesse said he was going to be brief. But you got to realize that ministers use a different dictionary than the rest of humanity. At least for that word, as Reverend Lisa just said. I want to bring something to your attention because some of you know it, but some of you don't. Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was one of the great teachers of New Thought, said, look for the good and praise it, and Reverend Lisa's always quoting her on this. You actually have at this center one of the greatest teachers of religious science that's ever been around, and that's Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings. And I just want everybody to realize that, whether you're online or in the room. So please pass this word on, because he really knows what he's talking about. He's really studied it for 40 plus years, and he really and truly is a great authority on Ernest Holmes. You're welcome. I'm a Brit, so I only praise things that are worth praising, Reverend Jesse. And I'm an engineer, so I'm usually brief, unlike some others in this room, but that's another story. Thank you. As we come up to giving time, and our ushers are getting ready to come down here, we appreciate everything that you do for us, whether it's your work that you do here, it's the gifts you give us, whether it's monetary gifts or otherwise. We truly appreciate them. So now I want you to take your gift either literally in your hand if you're in the room, or figuratively if you're online and you give otherwise, and just join with me in saying, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive, I am prosperous now, and so it is.
Okay. And now I get to give you a treatment. And since Valentine's Day is coming, well, let's treat about love, right? I actually have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth. We'll just see, right? I'm just thinking about love, but now I'm also thinking, hey now.
Iko.
Or, well, I can throw you one better. Just before we got on, which is why Raymond was on my mind, is does anybody know the Manamana song from the Muppets? Yep, he posted that right before, which is why he was on my mind. I was like, oh, we need that earworm, don't we? All right. And of course, they've got it on tap right there. I love it. Gotta love the musicians. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is take one nice deep breath. Just breathe in all of the wisdom that you have heard here. And as you release the breath, just let go of everything. Just for a moment. Fall into that divine love. Consciously. Know with me that there is one power, one presence, one love. We are divine channels. What we were made for, if we could be said to have a purpose, is to channel that love into now. And all of the amazing things that that love does. That love that hatches baby birds. That love that brings us baby kittens and puppies and baby humans. That love that reaches out and grabs another's hand in that moment of need. That hand that wipes away a tear. That hug that fits all the pieces back together again. That love that says, I see you, and you are good. That is just the barest scratchings of the surface of the divine love that we carry. The divine love that we are capable of. The divine love that we are. And so much more than that. I know this week, as we move through this week, that we look into each other's eyes and we see divine love looking back. That when we reach out our hands are clasped back by divine love. That love comes at us from every angle and in every form. And that we give love back just as relentlessly and recklessly. Because if we're going to do anything recklessly, love is it. And I know the warm hearts, the warm smiles, and the amazing healing that follows the breath of love. That which is seeking you, you are seeking. Joy is running through the streets calling your name. But love has already found you. And I know this with all of the gratitude in my being. I am grateful for a teaching that teaches me who I am. And more importantly, whose I am. Who you are. I am grateful for this community. I am grateful for our ministers, our musicians, our practitioners. I am grateful for each and every one of you. And I am grateful for every opportunity to love, even when it's uncomfortable. And I relax and know that love is law. And so it is.
Okay,
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I
And
use
I
it.
love it.
And I love
So
it.
it is.
And so it is.